Well, we got another one in, guys, that has been sitting for multiple years. Let's see if we can get this one running without too much trouble. All right, guys, here we have a 2006 Club Car DS gas. This one here is a candidate that came in. Customer called us, said, hey, I'm thinking of buying this cart. It's been sitting for many years and he'd like me to go through it and try to get it running first. So the first thing that what I'm gonna do, pull the carburetor, clean it, and then we're going to get the engine running first. That's first things we're gonna do, just to make sure that there's no issues with the engine. And then if all goes well, we'll get in touch with the customer and I'll say, hey, got the engine running, so you're good there. And then give them the other options and the other things that we're gonna need to do, like oil change, fuel filters. I know I'm gonna have to pump the gas tank out, clean and refill the tank with fresh gas, and a whole bunch of other little things. This cart does have 3 tires that are not holding air, 2 back tires and the driver's side front tire. They just go flat over time. We'll then go ahead and check the lights. I know it's gonna need a new battery. For now, we just wanna at least get the engine running and make sure that it's good to go in that regard. So let's get the camera set up and we'll get under the seat. All right, so I'm gonna do my best, guys, to get this all in shot. It's gonna be a little tricky. First thing I wanna do is I wanna get the air hose off and then start taking all this stuff apart here. So for that, we need to actually unhook this, get that out of my way. I may be sniffling a little bit in this video. I apologize in advance. Allergies. The pollen is rampant. Oh, look at that, the bottom nut broke loose. So this whole post is coming out. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. And now we need some Torx bits here. Let's see, what's this? Here we go. These are T15s. They're not very long. They don't need a lot of power to get them out. It's just faster to use this tool than it is to try to sit here and fart around with it. Okay, now that allows us to remove the shroud. But you can see this bolt has a shouldered bolt, and then it's machined with the thread and then a shaft and all that stuff. So we'll have to mess with that a little bit later. This doesn't have a retaining pin. It just has basically a stepped end on the cable, a molded on cable. So if that ever breaks, you got to replace the cable, unfortunately. All right, throttle body's off. Let's get this hose clamp out of the way. I like to use channel locks. Take this off. I'm actually going to take it off of the air box as well, just to give myself a little more working room here, or at least attempt to. It keeps the air hose from flailing in the way. And all right, now that I got a better grip on it this way, there we go. And that just slides right off. And this looks like it's in good shape. A lot of times these will start to collapse and if they get really stiff, they get brittle and crack. And then you have to replace them because they don't make a good seal around here. And these engines are notorious for not running really good without the airbox hooked up. So you got to remember that. Make sure the airbox is, the air filter's in place and all that stuff. They're calibrated to that amount of airflow. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so we got those loose. We'll crack that loose. These are 10mm nuts, at least they're supposed to be. Get them out of the way. Let's get looks like a 1/4 inch hose clamp. Yep. Okay. Oh, that fuel line's a little stiff. Okay. Like I said, I'm not even going to try to crank this engine over until I get into this. I know we're going to need to do some gaskets here because this one basically just fell apart. Not a big deal. We'll worry about that when we get it running. Okay, now the carburetor. What I'll do is I'll hit this bracket, just give it a thud, and it should, well, in this case, it's all coming out. Now this is the spacer and the choke plate, or the backing plate, which this comes off. You can separate that. Don't lose the throttle return spring because there's no spring installed on the throttle lever itself, so you got to remember that. A little sooty, but not bad. Gas smells a little funky. So we'll take it over to the bench and we'll clean it out. All right, so we're gonna try this view again. I know everything's gonna be kind of upside down to your perspective, but 'tis what it is. I got a new little catch pan here. I lost the other one. I probably left it on somebody's golf cart, so I had to call a couple people and say, hey, if you see a blue oil can cut in half underneath your engine, just pull it out and throw it away. It happens. 10 millimeter. Now, I've had a couple of people ask me why I don't clean the carburetors first before taking them apart. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of being able to see what's in the carburetor before cleaning it. You know what I mean? You want to be able to see the crap that comes out. Now, keep in mind, this is a brand new container that I just cut open. Well, it's not really a brand new container. It is a used oil container, but I'm just going to kind of tap around this. Hopefully it'll... Holy crap, that is... There we go. All right, so there's a bit of crap in there. A lot of this stuff that came out now, that just fell off of the outside. Bit varnishy. It smells like paint thinner. So what I'm going to do is... Let me put this cover on. Now that I've emptied it out to see what's inside of it, I'll take it over to the parts washer and I'll give it a quick rinse. Right back. Okay, so now that we're back, I'm going to take this open here. And there's the washer for this. Wasn't all that concerned with it because it's just a solvent-based cleaner. So, but you can see that, look at all the crap that ended up in there now. So that would have been a false positive, and it would have looked like we had water in the gas when we in fact didn't. So the carburetor looks a little better. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's about as good as we're going to get it with our setup here, without really putting it through ultrasonic cleaners and all that stuff. I want to start pulling the jets out and the other junk that's in there. That's one thing that I like about the carbs on these club cars, is that they're really pretty straightforward as far as cleaning them. There's no return spring on the throttle. You can see how it just flaps. There's no choke on these carbs. This is where a choke would go if it had one. It probably could be drilled out and added, but then, you know, you really got to know what you're doing. But as far as the choke goes, the cart handles the choke on the intake side, so that's pretty neat. Let's see, what was I doing? Where's the... let me get a different screwdriver for the main jet there. Let's try this one here. This one's been good to me with getting these out. Okay. There's positive contact. Oop, maybe not. Just trying to look down inside. Okay, there we go. Again, I got to try to find myself a nice set of screwdrivers that have a straight, flat blade here, and they don't have that taper. I don't know if you can see how that's tapered. I don't like that taper. Okay, there's the main jet. There's the tube, the main tube. I don't really know exactly what all these little parts are called. I don't really care. All I care about is making the gas go through this stuff. Phone is ringing, but it can wait because I'm covered in crap. Alright, so you can see a little bit of carb cleaner in the bottom of this bowl. Kind of rub it around a little. This is where I'll take a rag and wipe the inside of the bowl out, because you can see how that cleans that up nice. Just that little bit, but we'll do that last. I'm not really too concerned with that. I want to take the can with the straw here and start blowing back and rinsing all this stuff off gently. Now the O-ring that's going around the base here, I'm not too concerned with, because it is pressed in there pretty tight, and I haven't really had much trouble with these ones blowing back out and stretching on me. Now they will stretch because they are made out of rubber, so it's something to keep in mind, but I haven't had too much issue with the club car ones doing it to me, so not all that worried. Alright, so now we'll just kind of blast all this off. It'll help loosen up the dirt. It'll just look better. The outside isn't really that critical. Now on the club cars, here's your adjustment for your fuel mix, and it only turns maybe a half a turn. So you're really not going to gain a lot by trying to adjust these things. They're not really designed to be adjusted like on a Tecumseh or a Kohler, you know, lawnmower engine or whatever. Well, not even some of them. those little crappy push mowers that you get for like 200 bucks at Walmart don't even have adjustable carburetors on them. So it's a carburetor fuel pump gas tank combo deal. So it's interesting, to say the least. I think it's time to find a new glove supplier. These gloves, look at this. These gloves suck. They don't handle this carb cleaner very well. All right, so now we'll take our tube here and full blast on that. Wipe it off with a towel just to make sure it's nice and clean. Nice and clean. I can see daylight through it. The ports look clean. They're good. This can go back in. This side goes up. This is basically the Venturi thingamajig there. Here's our main jet. That's nice and clean. I'll put that in. Make sure it seats correctly. And we'll take our screwdriver here, and this is not the right screwdriver. And this isn't the screwdriver that I normally use for, there it goes, that I use for this. It's just the one that I happened to grab that worked. And remember, again, these are soft metals in these carbs, so you don't want to go, you know, crazy on tightening this stuff down. You do want it to seat tight, but you don't want it to be nuts. Okay. Now I know this pilot here, this valve, or pilot jet rather, doesn't go through, so it actually side and bottom ported. So we only have to really worry about that. All right, there's that. All right, so our pilot's clean. And guys, if you know the parts of these carburetors better than I do, you know, their actual names or proper terms, if I'm misspeaking on what a part is called, you know, let me know down in the comments. I'm all right with being corrected. I don't have a problem with that. Let's see, the rubber tip looks okay. I'm going to leave it on, and I'm just going to kind of douche it down real quick here. And in my experience with these carburetors, the floats, the plastic floats generally don't fail. They're usually pretty solid and pretty good. I don't really worry about them too much. Let's see. I don't really worry about the rubber tips on these two. They're usually pretty resilient. Whoop. Oh, now I gotta dry it off again. Oh, now I probably should. Yeah. Stop talking and work, you butthole. Anyway. There we go. Let's just kind of get this cleaned off. But like I said, these are pretty resilient carburetors. The only time I really ever have to change them is if they're really gunked up and I don't trust returning them back to the cart. Let's see here. Let's install this. Okay, everything looks good. You also, like I said in other videos, you want to make sure that this works freely, and you want to make sure that your needle valve moves freely. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that, but you see how it's moving up and down? You got to make sure that that's working correctly, or you're going to have problems. You're just not going to solve anything by taking it apart, cleaning it, and then just putting it back together without making sure the parts are working like they're supposed to. Okay, so I'll wipe that out. Look at the crap that came out. Look how nice and shiny it is inside there. Looks good, huh? All right. Now, I always like to put the drain towards the fuel inlet, unless the cart doesn't allow me to do that because of something. But that seems to be the best place for it because you can access that usually. So we'll tighten this down. Okay. All right. Let's go put that thing back in the cart. Let's reinstall this. Oh, wait a second. See, I almost missed a step. So this here, I'm going to separate gently, maybe. It'll come apart without tearing. Yeah, there we go. So this is the isolator. Whoops, I dropped it. This is the isolator. There's a gasket between the intake manifold, or the intake port, and here. There's a gasket between this isolator, okay, and it only goes in one way, and this choke plate. I'm gonna call it a choke plate, even though it's not really a choke plate, but it's just a bracket, okay? And then what I like to do is hook our spring on this bottom hole here and let it dangle. And then the other hook on the spring, there's a little hole on this carburetor. It only goes in one spot. Get everything lined up. I'll have to go into detail on that in another video. I just really want to get this thing going. I want to see if it runs. It should. And then we slide it all together on the cart like that. Hook our throttle cable up. I'm going to plug in our spark plug. Now I do have to replace the gasket here and clean these surfaces up a little better. I mean, in all reality, this will just peel right off. It's not really bad or anything. If they don't want to come off, you can use a plastic razor blade. You can use a metal razor blade if you're comfortable with that, just to scrape off the excess material. Don't cut your fingers off. Okay, the carburetor face is clean. And this is just the intake. I call it a snorkel. And I'll just kind of scrape off that material there very carefully. Okay, now I'll get a gasket. So I have my box of gaskets here. I'll just look through until I find throttle bracket. That's this to carburetor. So there's a gasket in there. That's not the one we need. Say throttle back to insulator. That's not the one we need. That's the one that goes between the insulator and the back of that bracket. Here we go. Manifold to carburetor. Okay, carb-029, CARB-029. This is the gasket here. See if you can see that. It goes on with the extra hole top right, looking at the carburetor. Slide that bad boy on there. And then I'm not going to put anything else on this. I am actually going to get a small bit of gas so that I can feed the cart fresh fuel. I'm not pumping that gas from the tank into this engine because we just went through all the trouble of taking this apart and cleaning it. So why would I do that, right? That makes no sense. Okay, so we know we're all good here. I'm gonna put this back on because we don't have to really worry about taking this apart again unless we run into a little bit of trouble. Okay, and that bites into there. That bites into here. One more. There, that's good. Now I'll take these little Torx screws. These are basically like a little security measure, even though everybody and their brother now has, I'm pretty sure they have access to Torx bits. Torx, Robertson, square drive, whatever you feel like calling them. Now I'm not going to put actually yes, I am going to put the intake back on. But first, let me pull the airbox cover off because I want to see what the condition of the air filter is in while we're here. If it's clean, we're not going to change it. It's silly. Oh yeah, that's practically brand new. So we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so the air filter is good. That's one less thing the customer has to buy. I'm not going to sell you a part that you don't need. That's wasteful. Wasteful spending, and it's just wasteful for throwing out a perfectly good air cleaner. Now, if I could just get this stupid clamp to, there we go, slide over. Actually, I would like to put this up here where it belongs. I like to have the clamp facing up, except for the one on the side of the carb. Whoop. Put that on. We'll hook that up. Okay. All right, so let me get my fuel delivery apparatus hooked up. I'm going to disconnect it here from the tank. Actually, I'll just disconnect it from here. And then we'll replace these two fuel filters, and then we'll pump some fresh gas through it and then get it into the carburetor and try to fire this thing up. In the interest of saving time, I went ahead already and, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this here. I have changed the fuel filter. I changed this fuel filter. I added a new piece of hose because that piece was a little too short. Changed this fuel filter, and I now have a spare gas can over here with a hose hooked into it that we're pulling fuel from. I already had the engine running, but just for poop and laughter here. You can hear the engine starts and runs perfectly. So the fuel system is now good from this point all the way up to the carburetor. So what I have to do now is I'm going to pump down this gas tank because the gas that's in here stinks really bad, and there's some water floating in the bottom of the tank. So I'd really like to get that pumped out. We'll get this cleaned. The battery I put on charge for a couple of hours, and it seems to have taken the charge, but it is a little weak starting. And after speaking with the customer, they said just go ahead and change the battery, pump down the gas tank, clean the gas tank, do an oil change, and change 3 tires on this thing. So that is what we're going to do. I did pull the spark plug in the meantime just to check it out while I was waiting for the battery to charge up a little. That's good. That barely even has any carbon buildup on it. So it almost looks like they just changed it and then parked the cart. The lights work. Everything else is good on this. So we're good. After talking with the customer, we have the go-ahead to go and do all of the final repairs that we need to do. And they're pretty happy with the price that I gave them. So we're going to get this tank pumped down and cleaned out. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect my little fuel setup here with fresh gas. I'm going to move that over here for the moment. I have an old gas can right here that I dump all my waste fuel into with this little click-clack pump. I'm going to hook this up to the fuel outlet of the gas tank and then run them over to the battery. And this will basically siphon out the tank using the cart's factory installed dip tube. Let's try. Let's try that. All right, so the pump is just vibrating up against the seat mount here, so we'll just move it over. And as soon as it pulls a siphon, it'll get a little smoother. This pump does take a little bit to get started because of all the nasty gas that I've pulled through it. Yep, the filter's a little wet now, so we're getting there. There we go. There we go. All right, so now we'll just let this thing pump the tank down to as low as it'll go. And then I'll get my magic cloth on a metal pole and we'll wipe out the tank. Okay, it has finished pumping down the tank here, so let's shut that off, get this out of the way, disconnect my filter here and let it drain down into the tank. That gas smells really bad, just saying. Okay, so it's basically one of these little inline filter or pumps, 12 volt electric fuel pump, low pressure. I think this is like 2.5 to 4 psi. So I use it as like a fuel transfer pump, but it works perfectly for this. I just got to make sure there's a filter on it, that's all. All right, so now you're probably asking, how do I get the rest of the gas out of the fuel tank? Oh, and also in the interest of saving more time, I've already gone ahead and changed the oil and oil filter. So the last thing that we're going to really have to do to this cart is swap out that battery. But to show you what I do, let's see if I can back this all the way out. I have, like I said, there's this old ass 5-gallon can that I use strictly for old gas. You can see how dingy and dirty it is. But here, I'll show you what I'll do. Let me find my, here it is. All right, so I have a piece of all thread, threaded rod, whatever you want to call it. And I have a piece of, or what do they call these things? Brain fart. Hang on a second. Brain's rebooting. 3, 2, 1. This is a microfiber towel that I basically have zip tied to the end of this pole, or this re-rod, all thread, whatever you want to call it. Threaded rod. I have a smaller piece somewhere. I just don't know where it went. A smaller diameter and shorter piece of metal. And then what I'll do is I'll just basically take it and I'll twist it inside the tank here just to kind of flip that microfiber towel around, and that'll absorb as much of the gas as possible in one go. And then when I lift it back out, I'll basically wring out the microfiber towel into this funnel that's also hanging, or that's inserted into the gas can that I'm pumping bad fuel into. So this way I can kind of keep all the nasty, dirty, varnishy fuel in one place. And then after a while, that gas will go to recycling. We'll take care of it responsibly. But this, by doing this with the microfiber towel, it'll basically pick up all the little tiny debris in the bottom of the tank. It also absorbs the water. It absorbs the gas. It basically cleans the bottom of the tank out really well. It's worked very, very well for me in the past. Actually, that is perfect. It's done. So there really wasn't much in the bottom of this one here. And then I basically will just let it air dry outside because it does stink really bad. This gas is really rancid. Oop, I just ripped my gloves, so now I got to change my gloves. All right, and that's basically all I really have to do to pump the tanks down. And then now what I can do is hook this fuel line back up to the, oh, this isn't a clamp, I have to twist that. All right, so let me get my nut driver and tighten that down. But now the tank is clean. This being disconnected allowed the fuel that was in the line and in the siphon tube to just drain back into the tank. So I know that's good. The inside of the tank's nice and clean. So we'll fill it up with some ethanol-free fuel, a full 5 gallons, which I have here. Basically the same fuel I was sucking out of that tank, that gas tank I have, will go in here. Okay, plop that right there. Apparently these are supposed to be really good funnels. I mean, I've been using this one for years, so I've had no trouble. I've had no problems. 5 gallons of ethanol-free fuel. Hopefully I don't make a frickin' mess here. I have another gas can, I just don't have it here. It's over at the storage building. It's got the nice spout on it. This one here is kind of, it'll work. I'll just pour it nice and slow so we don't make a mess. Okay. All right, so now that we're past that point here, I will take this off. This is an old gas can because it still has the easy to pour spout. It doesn't have that safety crap that the government thinks is better. Whoop. Just trying not to make a damn mess here. There we go. But that's what I like about the other gas can I have. It's the no spill gas can. What I like about that is it's just a button. And it does empty pretty quick, which is nice. It's just over at storage right now because I'm using it for the pressure washer. Getting carts ready to go back from storage, which I will be doing a video on how I prepare a cart, how I wash a cart. For some reason that's been a topic people want to see. I don't know why, but all right, I'll do it. Do a video on it. I also have to do a video on Super Clean. They sent some product to me. I'll do a video on Super Clean because I use Super Clean to clean all my golf carts. I use Super Clean on everything. That's amazing stuff, I gotta tell you. Okay, that is 99.999% of the gas in that can. Make sure that's all in there. Yep, full tank of gas. Now these Mr. Funnels, there's a little reservoir here that captures any like water or chunkies that might be in your gas can, so just be forewarned of that. I like to dump it in the oil waste pan here. I'd rather waste an ounce or two of fuel knowing that there's no water in my gas. Okay, So there we go. There's that. Gas tank is clean. New fuel filters. Replaced a piece of fuel line. Spark plug's good. We did an oil change and a filter. Air filter is good. We still have to replace the battery and do 3 used tires. So let's see how it runs. All right, so I'm just gonna run this for about 10 minutes. Fantastic. Okay, so I know this fuel system is clean. No, I didn't film doing the oil change. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward process. You guys have seen me do oil changes before. So I'm gonna move on to the tires on this cart. Well, all right, guys, there she is. The cart is done. I changed the 3 tires, the 2 rear and one of the front ones that kept going flat with 3 used tires. This thing's, as far as the video goes, this cart is done. Tomorrow I have to go pick up a battery for it. We'll swap that out and then that'll be done. And this thing is going to be going back to the customer. So I just wanted to take you along for this quick one. This one really didn't I don't know, the main focus of this video, I guess, was carburetor cleaning, but that's about it. I mean, I didn't film anything really too exciting on this one. Just a piece of content for you to enjoy, so I hope you enjoyed it. So as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you already haven't. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified anytime I upload a video to the channel. Leave a comment down below, and as always, guys, we'll see you in the next video.